NFC West, San Francisco, they're just going to repeat what they did a year ago. So let's make them a $2 favorite. That's what they are. Win total's 11.5. However, it is juiced to the under. Average price about -150 to the under. The Niners are the second favorite for the Super Bowl at 6-1. The second favorite for the division, the LA Rams. Win total toggling between 8.5, 9.5, 30-1 for the Super Bowl. Third favorite, Seahawks, 8-1 for the division. Win totals between 7.5 and 8.5. And a longer shot at 70-1 for the Super Bowl. And the last team listed, the Arizona Cardinals. 14-1 for the division, 6.5, 7.5, depending on your book for the win total, and triple digits when it comes to the Super Bowl. Let's start the conversation off with San Francisco. We just led off with the Ayuk news. He gets his deal. It's the deal that's been available for quite some time. He was the focus for quite some time, but that has completely flipped. Again, it's all about Trent Williams. Look at the numbers when he's on the field versus when he's off. Brock Purdy, under duress, that's a different quarterback than the one we see most of the time, the one where people are debating whether he's actually good or not. He's really good when Trent Williams is on the field. I don't know about that when he isn't.
Big deal for them. You need to have him. He's the face of your offensive line. He's the meat on your bones. They need him out there to be a team that's going to win the division, win the conference, win the Super Bowl. I don't think San Francisco is winning a Super Bowl without Trent Williams. That's how important he is. And technically, he wasn't as great as he's been in years past, but he's still sizably better than the average left tackle. I mean, it's not even close. So they're going to need him to figure this out, and they're going to need to figure this out. They need to come together on this. I really don't want to short San Francisco, but I'm also in no rush to bet over 11.5. There are so many teams that we've seen over the years that have made deep runs, made it to a Super Bowl, lost said Super Bowl, and just couldn't come back the next year. I mean, it's happened when we were in Chicago together. The Bears team that went to the Super Bowl, lost to the Colts, complete dud the next year. Like how many of these teams do we have to see? Carolina goes in one of Cam Newton's first 5 seasons. Next year, dud. It's a weird mental thing, I think, for a lot of these teams to get that far, to be in camp in late July and play all the way to February and then get embarrassed in the Super Bowl. Not that San Francisco got embarrassed. I mean, they probably should have won the game and then lost the game. But I am not betting them over. I am not betting them division. I am not betting them conference or Super Bowl. And that's just the way it's going to crumble this year.
Schedule isn't great, at least the setup of the schedule. Now, that was the same situation last year. The schedule did not look great. Atlanta, it looked easy, and they go under on the win total. It's easy again. So I find that to be interesting that the Niners schedule has challenges for the second straight year. We'll see if they're as successful. Atlanta is easy for the second straight year. Maybe they end up turning things around, but a lot of change with that team. Warren Sharp pointed this out about the net rest differential, -21. It is the worst we've seen in the last decade in the league. And last year, situation where you're facing teams coming off a bye, they had 3 games where they were facing teams coming off a bye. They went 0-3 against the spread. Remember that stretch in the middle there where they lost 3 games in a row. So, there's this perception like they're unbeatable and it's a softer NFC and all that. That may be the case about the conference because there aren't a ton of teams, maybe a few teams that we view true contenders for the Super Bowl in the NFC. But look, man, this is a beatable team. And I still view Trent Williams as maybe the most valuable player on that entire roster. I know they've got a ton of depth everywhere. They don't have another Trent Williams.
They do not. They also have a couple concerns with the defense. And it's not going to be a bottom 10 defense because there's just too many good players on it. But I look at Sumer Sports every day during the NFL season, SUMER sports.com. Tremendous metrical site that rates teams by offense and by defense. In 2022, 2 years ago, San Francisco was number 1 in total defense. Number 1, the best in the NFL. Last year's Niners team, overall in defense, was 12th. Now, that's a substantial drop. My question to you, where does it go from there? Does it go back
Right.
to being a top 10 defense, or are guys getting older? Are guys going to get hurt? Is the secondary going to be a concern? When you go from the number one defense to the number 12 defense in a year, that sort of causes concern for a guy like me. Can they get back to where they're supposed to be, or does it continue to run the wrong way? And that will really dictate their season. We talk all the time about San Francisco. And what are the first four conversations? Can Kyle Shanahan win the big one? Is Brock Purdy a good quarterback? Who's going to be able to stop Christian McCaffrey? And all these receivers, are they going to get enough touches? We don't talk enough about the defense. I'm guilty of it too, because it's an
Yeah.
offensive team with an offensive coach. But if you look at the numbers, their defense got a lot worse from where they were 2 years ago to how they finished last year. And the truth will be, if they are not better defensively, they could easily miss the playoffs.
This is what happens when you start to pay people. And that's the biggest storyline with the Niners over the last couple of years. Paying their dues, paying Bosa, paying CMC. Now it's paying Ayuk. They pay Debo. Like, you go through all these guys, and in the end, where's the money? That's why the quarterback is so valuable, because they haven't had to pay the quarterback. Now, quietly, we don't make a big deal about it. You're right. They keep losing dudes on that defensive line. This year it's Eric Armstead. Now Eric Armstead's no longer there. It's one guy after another after another. After a few years, I don't care how deep your roster is, you lose that depth when you pay everybody and you're losing guys on that front. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on. Now Leonard Floyd is there on that defensive line. So
Oh, yay.
it's
Good for him.
something to keep an eye on. Let me ask you this. Okay, so the sharp guys obviously bet under on San Francisco. They're betting over on a couple other teams in the division that we're going to talk about, and they bet under on San Francisco. So now it's at a point where, like, if you want a decent price, you've got to go under 10.5. Would you be willing to go under 10.5 on San Francisco, or do you walk away and go positive elsewhere?
I would bet them to miss the playoffs. I want to give Charge full credit because I hadn't even thought about it, because nobody
Mm-hmm.
thinks about betting against one of the most talented teams in a conference. But if you oftentimes short the room, you are in a great spot from a value perspective. And it's so funny. We do a betting show. I see a lot of betting content on the internet. I think value is the dumbest word in this space because nobody knows what value really is. People will say, oh, well, there's value there, or this has value. And value is just like a make believe word. It's impossible to define betting value. I've always thought value was better return on your investment or a better price than the market really should be. And if you want
Yes,
to go
I
against
can agree
San
with that. Yeah.
Francisco, you want to go against San Francisco, man, you're getting 3-1 to make the playoffs or to miss the playoffs for that matter. That
Mm-hmm.
number has value because it probably should not be that high. They should probably be 2.25, 230, 240, not $3, 310 at BetMGM. 320 as I see the screen right now. So it actually went up.
Yep.
Look at that split. Holy cow. Imagine if you were booking minus 429 and plus 320. You could do a lot of things when you're booking dollar juice right there.
Yep.
That's what value is. Value is taking a team at plus 320 to miss the playoffs when everybody's talking about they're good enough to get back to a Super Bowl. That, to me, has numerical value.
Second best price. They are the second favorite for the Super Bowl. So to miss the playoffs, that's what we're talking about. The only longer shot there is the Chiefs. When I do hear the word value, what you hit on second, that's what I think people are saying. A lot of times, hashtag value is said by people that don't really know what they're talking about. So I don't know if that's what they mean, but what I'm hearing is they think the price should be something else. That's why something's value. Yeah, right. Like, okay, great. You got a good number. It's a losing bet. Like, it has no chance of hitting. So what's the point? Yeah, one of those
How many
ridiculous
videos
things.
have we seen where, somebody
Value.
gets on camera and
Or they're
says,
walking.
this this has hit in 4 out of 6 games. There's value here. Actually, it's
Mhm.
probably the opposite because if
Yes.
something has hit in 4 out of 6 games, everybody knows about it, and the price discovery is that much easier for the books. If something
Yes.
has hit 7 times out of 10, it like those are the stupidest stories I read. The stupidest stories. I
Done.
can't even talk. I'm flustered. When you every year when we get to like the first 3 or 4 weeks and it's the overs are hitting at 62%. And then
Go
what
under.
happens the next week? The books
Yes.
all make the totals higher. Everybody bets the hot trend, and 14 of the 17 games go under. That's how it happens. When you read these hot trends, that removes the value from the number. Period.
We just went through this with the NFL preseason. It was all unders weeks 1 and 2, and we were basically calling it. It's going to be overs, and that's exactly what happened. It was a lot more overs than unders in week number 3. And week number 3, when everybody was betting the under, because what they saw happen in week 1 and 2 with lower numbers, with third string guys, those were going under. Big surprise. Can't fathom that. This is BetQL Daily. Joe O. Sammy P. All right, Sammy. We don't like San Francisco in the division. Each of us like a different team, two different teams. Which team do you like?
I like your team too. I like the math on my team a little bit more. I did last night. I did a bad thing. I bet a
Oh, no.
flyer on Arizona to win the NFC West at 14-1.
Yeah.
Probably doesn't happen. But I have heard several sharp people that I talk to every day. One of them is on the over 6.5, bet it earlier in the offseason. Another one is on Kyler Murray to win the MVP at 50-1. So
Whoa.
when you hear bets like that from respected cats, it starts to get you interested. I am much more interested in Arizona than I was maybe after the draft when I didn't even think about Arizona. I was still crying about Kentucky losing in the first game to Oakland in March Madness. But when you get through camp and you start to see these bets pop through, you hear Arizona over 6.5 and Kyler MVP at 50-1.
Mm-hmm.
You start thinking, maybe this team is going to win 7 or 8. Maybe Marvin Harrison Jr. is unstoppable. Maybe James Conner will stay healthy. And maybe Kyler Murray can do what he needs to do to get this team over 6.5.
They had a really good run game last year. The problem is the defense. Are they going to be able to stop anyone? They don't have a strength on defense. They've got to turn that around a little bit. If you can get closer to the middle of the pack, what you talked about, it's real. If San Francisco's coming back down to earth like we believe, we'll get to it. The Rams coming back down. I mean, no Aaron Donald. You have 5 new defensive starters. A couple of them are going to be rookies. Really going to trust? I know trusting McVay and all that, and at Stafford at this stage in his career, I'm not going to trust the Rams either. So it's between the Seahawks and the Cardinals. You're on the Cardinals. And oh, by the way, you add Marvin Harrison Jr. to that offense for Kyler. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense that they're going to exceed expectations at the very least. I do definitely like the win total, but I'm higher on Seattle. Love the hire of Mike McDonald. I think what's really interesting about this new situation is Ryan Grubb, the offensive coordinator. Is he going to run what he did in Washington, or is he going to tailor it a little bit different for Geno Smith? Geno Smith can sling it deep. I mean, he might do exactly what we saw with Penix last year. And on the defensive side, McDonald has some talent. You know, Carroll definitely lost a lot off his fastball over the last few years, but McDonald has a whole lot of talent. They draft Byron Murphy. He falls to them in the first round of the draft. In the second year, you've got Woolen, you've got Witherspoon. I think Seattle could certainly make the playoffs. 8-1 for the division. That's worth a shot.
You want me to just agree with you? Because I do agree.
You in?
I actually agree. I
Okay.
think I think this
I
division is
didn't
going to
know.
be
Yeah.
fascinating. And let's also
Flip.
go ahead.
They're flipping the division. Are the Rams last? Like, what do we think?
We went 12 minutes and didn't bring up the name Aaron Donald, one of the greatest defensive players to the point spread in the history of the league. Replacing that guy is not going to be easy.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you. And Father Time undefeated. So it's going to happen with Stafford. We know he's missed time throughout his career, but, one of these years is just going to be an
He
avalanche,
couldn't grip the
and it's all
ball
going to hit.
last year.
I know.
Remember he had the elbow issue? He's like, I can't grab the football.
He has 5-6 injuries a year. So what we're talking about could be reality here.